everybody. Welcome back here to Dizzo's Den. You can still download our podcast every day at Inforum.com on Hot Mic. You missed our interview with Missouri Valley Football Commissioner Patty Viverito. I wanted to take a segment out of that and replay it here as we go into a variety of topics, including admitting North Dakota State and South Dakota State into the old Gateway Football Conference and the hostility that each school faced from Southern member schools like Indiana State, Southern Illinois. They were not thrilled that the Bison and Jackrabbits were about to come into what was then a very good FCS league, but certainly not to the status where it's at. We also talk about making it back to Frisco for the second time to have two teams from one league playing. It's only happened one other time. Again, it was the Missouri Valley with North Dakota State and Illinois State in the 2015 title game. We also talk about changes to the FCS playoffs going forward. There's been a lot of talk about expansion of the bracket. Viverito has a different idea, including seeding of it. So that's all in this conversation with Missouri Valley Football Conference Commissioner Patty Viverito. That's got to be the greatest Christmas present there is, right? To have both teams playing for the title.
I cannot wipe the grin off my face since the second win last weekend, and I knew that I already had a Christmas present placed under my tree early. I've been celebrating ever since, and the congratulations have been heartfelt and wonderful from my fellow commissioners, but my guess is they're getting a little tired of it.
Okay, well, that was my next question. Are they giving you the cold shoulder? Are they ignoring you now? Because this is the second time this has happened now.
Well, I don't know if you happen to see the Big Sky tweet.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the general sentiment. Like, you're taking something that should be fun and exciting and you make it not fun and exciting for the rest of us. And so I need to be respectful of that. I need not to be obnoxious in in how I approach my glee. But again, it's really hard not to.
You know, I saw Mike Kern up here, the associate commissioner, on Friday, and I said, hey, if it ends up coming to pass, you got to make those shirts again that you gave out in 2015, the Missouri Valley Conference Championship. Now, granted, I know NDSU, Illinois State didn't play that year, but those shirts were a hot commodity in Frisco that year.
Well, he has a little something up his sleeve because, as you know, I'm not going to be able to break out the green or the blue for that weekend. And, you know, just the Valley logo gets kind of boring. And so he does have a little trick up his sleeve for that.
Very good. I want to take you back because I remember being in St. Louis the winter of 2007. When North Dakota State and South Dakota State were making their pitches to join what was the Gateway then, and the resistance that you got from some schools. I don't need to name them. I think people know who they were then. And I know I've asked you this before about this beating beyond your wildest dreams, but to think then of what this could have been like, just take me back to what those internal conversations were like when you first heard from North and South Dakota State.
Well, to me, it was inevitable and the right thing to do. But you can't help that institutions are going to look at it from their own unique perspective. And especially the football coaches in the league, they're smart individuals. They knew what was coming. And again, it took a couple of years for them to, for North Dakota State and South Dakota State to do what they've done this year. But and they knew that it was going to be, at least competitively, a tougher road to hoe. But again, I will contend that bringing North Dakota State and South Dakota State into the league made all of our teams better because they raised the standard in a really meaningful way. And but again, it is still an awfully, awfully tough gauntlet to run every year. And I'm sure that some coaches get frustrated with the challenge, but they continue to roll up their sleeves and get after it.
Well, I can remember covering earlier in the FCS transition, the CAA was the team that the CAA was considered the SEC of the FCS. The Valley has grabbed that and taken it on steroids to where it's at. Just you've seen it firsthand. So what is your, proudest moment, or just to see how the league has totally embraced that over the last decade plus?
So Mike Kern put out a factoid in his latest release that I think speaks volumes. And you're right. Back in the day, it was the CAA, And I had coaches telling me, we've got to expand and do divisions because we have to mimic whatever the CAA is doing because they've figured out the golden ticket and how to advance and all that. And got lectured pretty heavily by some folks in the league about we needed to emulate the CAA. Well, since that time, over the last 12 years, the Missouri Valley Football Conference teams have made 14 appearances in the championship game. The next closest league in terms of number of teams appearing is the CAA with 4. So to say that we have made a statement about the strength of this league and being the undisputed toughest league in FCS, I think that data point alone makes a case.
Well, here's the great part about it. If you were to take the Bison 10 out of that, you'd still be tied for the lead with 4. Because the league, Illinois State made it, Youngstown, and the Jacks twice. So you'd still be tied. That's right. That's the part that's impressive to me.
Well, thank you. I wouldn't suggest that what the Bison have done is anything short of like monstrously impressive, though.
To see also what each South Dakota State and NDSU have done around there, how has that elevated the rest of the league in your mind? Because you go everywhere. Where have you seen it really? Is it facilities? Is it better, bigger staffs? Where have you seen it really, I guess, affected the most?
Okay, I'll give you 2 very recent examples of how this plays out. Illinois State is building an indoor practice facility.
Yep.
That probably doesn't happen unless there's pressure to do more to compete. And they are committed to being national caliber, and they know an indoor practice facility is part of it. And then you see the announcement from Northern Iowa about them not just making cosmetic improvements to a dome that is really a wonderful facility in its own right. I mean, they are changing the blueprint of what that facility is going to look like and feel like, and it's going to be magnificent. And so, those facility improvements probably don't happen unless you're in a league where you have to make those kinds of investments to keep up.
Yeah, that's a great point. Seeing Illinois State doing what they're doing, Northern Iowa as well. SIU built a new stadium. I know that was kind of before that, but they certainly have tried to keep ahead with the Joneses. I am interested also because I talked with Dan Margulis from ESPN back in September when the announcement was made about the FCS Championship Game moving to ABC and moving to Sunday. And he said he spoke with you and obviously all the conference commissioners. Can you give us some insight, at least on your end, about those conversations and how open the FCS was to moving to Sunday and to ABC?
I think the last 3 letters that you just recited, it's ABC. If you're talking about major broadcast window that you have an opportunity to fill, you take it. And does it come with some challenges with NFL? Of course. But it's a lot to be said that ESPN thinks enough of this property that putting it on ABC is a path that they were willing to take.
I know he had his fingers crossed that NDSU would be there, but now that I have both your league teams, do you think I'm not going to ask you to speak on television ratings, but this could be a better outcome for them than they even anticipated?
I don't think that they are the least bit disappointed with the lineup.
No. Do you think there's a possibility also, no matter how the ratings go, if the game is good, that this could stay on ABC and potentially Sunday going forward?
I think ESPN is probably not in a position to commit anything long term, but it's just like with game day. They were resistant to going to FCS locations for game day, and then they saw how wildly successful it was in Fargo. And guess what? It was wildly successful in Bozeman this year. I mean, they know now what FCS can deliver, not just our teams, but other teams. And I think they're much more receptive to those, the pitches that we make about better and different TV coverage.
It seems inevitable that this is the matchup that would have happened in Frisco. They've played in the second round, which I know you and I bemoaned that when it happened twice. They played in the quarterfinals. They played in the semifinals. College Game Day highlighted the Dakota marker. It just seems like this is the ultimate, like this was it, right? For these two teams to to get this kind of spotlight in Frisco, Texas?
Goodness knows they've both earned it.
Yeah.
And I want to actually have like a drone following along I-29 leading up to the game, because I think there's going to be a lot of fun happening, coming down. And I think the rivalry is amazing. And I think both fan bases will rise to the occasion. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun in Frisco.
I want to ask you this, and this is not to bring up bad memories, but from 2015, when the Valley had all 5 teams on the same side of the bracket and how things changed after that, to see again the Valley be represented with 2 teams in the championship. And I was clamoring for Youngstown. I know you were, obviously you have way more sway than I do to get into the field. Would this be a path? I know that the committee changes every year for the playoff committee for 23 to say, the Valley can't get just 3. If we have a 7-win Missouri Valley team, they have to be in the field.
Yeah, that question, that touches a nerve. The committee, if I have one criticism of the committee, and I try to be respectful, I know they have an impossibly difficult task, and there are many ways to approach the at-large selection process. I wish they would pay greater attention and give greater respect to strength of schedule. Because I think they've reached a point where if you get to 8 wins, you're a slam dunk. And 7 wins with any quality win, it becomes a slam dunk. My contention is that if you take many of those teams that got in at large this year and made them play our conference schedule, they don't get to 7 or 8 wins. And again, it's hard to criticize, because I know that it's not always the best teams that get in, and this is across sports. Sometimes it's the most deserving teams. We saw how that played out with the CFP discussions this year. And so, I understand that maybe there aren't any hard and fast right or wrong answers, but I do believe that they need to pay greater attention to how they define a good win, because to suggest that Youngstown State didn't have any good wins is insulting.
Yeah.
Just insulting. And so, that would be my complaint and my criticism going forward. In terms of improving the bracket in the future, I think the Transformation Committee of the NCAA has given some directive, or will give some directive, about greater seeding, greater opportunities to seed and not be so regional in focus. Even if we could seed, 50% of the bracket, but I think there's going to be a push to seed as many as 16. Wow. And I personally think that would help.
So it be seeded 1 to 16, you're saying?
That's going to be on the table for discussion. So your top 8 get a bye, your second 8 get a host, and we get away from all the drama that we had this year with the North Dakota Weber State.
That would be great. That would be fantastic. I'm off of that, because I know the Transformation Committee had thrown out potentially expanding the playoffs for all sports. Is that still on the table for the FCS playoffs?
It is on the table. I can tell you that in conversations with other commissioners, we would prioritize deeper seeding over more teams.
Yep. I think that would be,
because the Thanksgiving weekend is still a challenge.
Yes. Yep.
And to take more games and put more games and only get 4 teams buys or something like that, I'm not sure that helps the overall product that we are trying to put on the field in terms of entertainment value. It's just an impossible weekend to draw fans. It really is. And I think we recognize that. And so creating more opportunities to play on Thanksgiving weekend for 4 more teams may not be the answer.
I know we're getting way down the road here with the expansion of the college football playoff. There's talk of potentially making week 0 like the start of the new season for FBS or big boy football, as I contend. Is that a window there that if you started a week earlier for everybody, that maybe you could, get off of Thanksgiving, but is that a potential window there if everybody starts a week earlier?
Possibly. It's certainly
Okay.
something we'll talk about. That doesn't come without a pretty significant cost.
Yep.
And so I think we need to be respectful of, how we're trying to operate the FCS subdivision and not just not pay close attention to the financial burden we're putting on all schools to perhaps make things a little bit better in the postseason. Again, I don't know what the answer is, and it certainly will be studied. But week 0 is it looks like it's going to be on the table.
I'd be remiss not asking you as we get ready for 2023 that a new school be joining in the league in Murray State, and we're just talking about the commitment to winning. The conversations you've had down there with the school president, they have a new athletic director, about them going, and you and I talked about this when they got added in April, about their eyes wide open about what the challenges are. Is it? I don't know if you have to have another conversation, but just that seeing what happened this year on the field to get them ready for what's to come this coming fall.
Good observation. That didn't go without notice that they struggled this year.
No.
And they weren't in our league yet. And so I think eyes wide open is how they're approaching this. But eyes wide open with a commitment to be competitive, I think, is how I describe it. We had a President's Council meeting earlier this fall, and we asked for basically a transition update. What are you doing? And they feel good about the higher level of interest they already have in football in terms of season tickets and attendance. I think they feel good about their recruiting, and they are ever committed to making the investments that they need to make. And they understand they absolutely do need to make them if they want to be competitive in this league. And we'll welcome them. And, one of the benefits of going to 12 is that we'll do away with that, kind of awkward bye that can fall anywhere in the season. For instance, this year it was, South Dakota State, their bye was the last weekend, which was, far from ideal. And so at least we avoid some of those kinds of scenarios that an 11-team league presents.
Okay, now you open the door on scheduling. So I got to ask now for 25 and going forward, have you decided or settled upon, because I know we talked, a couple of years ago about protecting the regional rivalries,
Yes.
How that's going to go forward, where, especially like for teams up here, they still play their closest teams. Is there a pathway on that? Has that been discussed yet?
Yeah, we've already scheduled the next 6 years.
Okay.
And we're not ready to release them yet. We'll release them 2 at a time. But the format that was unanimously endorsed was that we want everybody to play every other team 4 out of the 6 years. And so you won't have somebody like off your schedule for more than 2 years, for more than one cycle, home and away cycle. And so, will we sacrifice some really good matchups to make that happen? Yes. But we thought that it was more important, single most important priority here is to make sure that we still feel like a league where everybody's playing everybody, 4 out of 6 years.
Was divisions get any momentum from either the coaches or ADs or presidents, or not so much?
It's funny, you talk about divisions and it sounds so simple. It really doesn't solve any problems. And yeah, we took a really deep dive on divisions. And when all was said and done, it didn't accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. And again, that was to make sure that we still feel like a league. It's troublesome enough that everybody doesn't get to play everybody and name a true champion. That's a challenge. That's one of the downsides of growing beyond 9 teams. But we think that we found the right balance with the scheduling model that will achieve a sense of conference unitedness and without sacrificing regional rivalries that are so important.
If you want to hire me as a consultant, I can certainly draw up divisions. I've done it plenty of times. I'm not sure if you'd be interested in my opinion, but I would certainly take it up if you were interested. I really appreciate the time as always. Have a great holiday. I look forward to seeing you in Texas in a couple of weeks. Okay.
All right. We'll save one of those t-shirts for you.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody, for listening here to this podcast. Hope you all have a great holiday. Full coverage of the National Championship Game be found on WDAY. Of course, you can watch the game between the Bison and the Jackrabbits on WDAY on January 8th. And stay tuned on Inforum.com for complete coverage leading up to and, of course, of the game. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great holiday, everybody.